So, Bitcoin has taken out its range low, alts are plummeting, and people are panicking. Could that mean we're potentially approaching a bottom here soon? Maybe. So we're going to talk about that. I'm also going to talk about some of my support levels and how I've refined them a bit in case we don't end up bottoming out here soon, because I think while there is a chance that we could just take out the range low, pull back into it, and then just continue ranging in here, that's very possible at this point. We could also be seeing the beginning of a larger retracement. Maybe that doesn't even bring us down that far. Maybe we just come down to some of the, supports that are closer to us, but it could lead to maybe a longer, more drawn-out retracement where maybe we just spend some time down in this area before trying to push to all-time high again. And I'm also going to talk about the reasons why I think this retracement that we're seeing since putting in all-time high is more of a bullish-looking thing, in my opinion, than a bearish, at least in the long term. So first, talking about Bitcoin taking out its range low. We have now hit my target for basically the bearishness that we've been seeing. I have to give myself a little pat on the back here because I've been pretty on fire, especially with the bearish calls recently. I called out ahead of time the possibility of us SFPing this local range high with the daily bearish divergences, and that ended up marking the local high before we rotated all the way down to the other end of the range. I also talked about somewhere in this area how it was looking like Market Cipher was showing bearish continuation, even though we were approaching some significant support down here. It looked, at least at the time, more likely that we would go through it rather than finding support on there. And of course, that could have changed. We could have gone to move into there, maybe ranged a bit, seen Market Cipher kind of start showing some bullish signs, and then at that point, I'd probably say, okay, maybe we do get a bounce. But that never happened. We pretty much saw, even like on the midterm time frames, money flow, momentum still showing bearish signs, and we, pretty much just sliced through that support. I kind of saw that coming. And then I also called the retest of the value area low. I said that was pretty much my line in the sand. If we can reclaim value area low, then I would look at a rotation further up in the range, but if we reject from value area low and we start seeing bearish signs there, that could be, the next local lower high before we end up going down to the range low. And what do you know? That's what happened. And of course, these are all, possibilities that I'm speaking on. I'm not saying these have to happen, but I do like to mention what I think is most probable. And so far, I've been pretty on point with that, at least within this range. And, well, there have been other times where I have been pretty on point, and there have been times where I haven't been as on point, but it's all about getting better, right? So now let's explore the possibility of us just SFPing the range low. Could we just wick this out and see a push to the upside, pull back within the range, continue ranging sideways within this, massive, like over $10,000 range? It's about a $17,000, $18,000 range maybe, and that definitely is still possible at this point. So far, we got a little move down below the range low. We, got a pretty decent wick here on the daily time frame, and we still haven't closed a daily candle, so there is still a possibility of this closing as an SFP. Now, again, I don't just trust single SFP candles. That's not going to make me enter along here and say, okay, the bullishness is back on. But an SFP is definitely, one sign, one confirmation that you can use, and if there's other things pointing to price rotating to the upside, then you can start building a case for it. But we also have to keep in mind the weekly close. The weekly candle does not close for another 2 days and 4 hours. So what could potentially happen is we could close a daily candle as an SFP here, or maybe just barely a break. We really have to see how the weekly candle closes to go along with that. I think if we close a daily candle as an SFP, and then after that, the next few daily candles start closing higher and higher, and then we end up closing a weekly candle like somewhere up here, that would, be more of a bullish thing in my opinion. And, still at that point, just because we have 2 SFP candles, one on the weekly, one on the daily, still doesn't make me think that we have to rotate back up in this range. We could just, maybe on the daily time frame, put in some kind of a lower high before continuing lower. But I still think it's important to watch how these candles close. Now, taking a look at Market Cipher, we actually have seen the weekly time frame change a little bit here on Market Cipher. We saw momentum continue to get a move down, and this can happen. We see, the oscillators move kind of in between candle closes, just because, the oscillator looks one way when the candle opens, and just because a new weekly candle hasn't opened yet doesn't mean it can't change. We have seen this change a little bit. We saw momentum get a further move to the downside. It looks like the VWAP even got a further move to the downside as well. And we're now starting to see momentum peak down below the zero line. That little white triangle thing inside of the yellow oscillator is the momentum, so it has crossed over the zero line. very interesting stuff there. Looking at the daily, there is right now, I think, a small chance of a divergence forming here. The reason I say a small chance is because, right now momentum is very close to this last wave. If this does print a higher low, it will be a divergence. Price put in a lower low, momentum could put in a higher low. We also are at a very significant level, so I think a divergence here would carry a decent amount of weight. But the reason I think it's kind of unlikely is because it doesn't appear like this momentum wave is very close to bottoming out. The white part is actually expanding. It's getting wider, and we're not seeing the VWAP getting close to the zero line yet. When the VWAP crosses the zero line, that's when you will see the green dots. As you can see right here, VWAP crossed, we got a green dot. And all these times prior where, it almost looked like we were going to print a green dot here, we saw the VWAP get very close to the zero line, but then kind of flop over. So, these things kind of work together. It seems like right now momentum is likely to move lower and put in a lower low because it's so close and it doesn't look like it's ready to bottom out yet. But, there is a small chance that if price starts getting some very bullish behavior, soon, I think it'd probably have to be before the daily candle closes, we could see this, turn around, get a very quick reversal where this white part just kind of instantly squeezes in and we get a green dot like that. We see funky green dots like that sometimes, but it's honestly not looking super likely. And we are also, right now seeing money flow slightly higher than where it was at, but it appears like it's probably going to continue moving lower. So, I'd say there's not really good looking divergence potential there. It is possible, but it's not looking very likely. Now, on the 4 hour, we see something different. We actually see some divergences that so far have confirmed. We see that momentum is put in a higher low. We see that even money flow is put in a slight higher low here. And that is as we took out the low. So there is some divergences. That is definitely something we have to consider, especially if we are going to close the daily candle as an SFP. So at this point, I'm not jumping to any conclusions. I'm going to wait a little bit and see how price acts over the next few days. But I do think there is potential that this could be some kind of a significant bottom, or that we could be approaching a significant bottom soon. Maybe we come back and SFP that low again. And the reason I think that's possible is because we actually front ran some pretty important support here. At least on Bybit, we front ran this little range over here ever so slightly. I want to check Binance as well. And yeah, over here we front ran it as well. So there is some significant support below us that we can hit by coming back down to SFP this low. And so now I'll talk about my support that I'm looking at below us for if we don't end up just SFPing this range low, pulling back up into it. What happens if we continue retracing? Or, we could still technically hit this support area and still SFP it on the weekly. If we get a quick move down in the next few days, we could still close the weekly candle as an SFP or barely as a break, and we can still see price pull back up into the range. But yeah, this is how I've refined these areas. So there's a lot of stuff on screen here, but what I want to focus on is these blue boxes that I have outlined. This is, the more local range to us, which I have found some confluence at. So what I did with this one is I pulled a fixed range tool from basically this low right here up to all-time high. I wanted to look at the volume of the last push to the upside, and we can see that the point of control of this is coming in right in the middle of this little range. So that is some nice confluence there. I have the last up expansion point of control within that range, and there's also an anchored VWAP from this low down here coming in inside that box. So a bit of confluence around there. And that support is right below where price just bottomed out. We front ran it ever so slightly, so I am looking at that as like my most immediate support. And I've also done some refining in this larger range down here. I kind of outlined this area with this blue box. I pulled a fixed range from a different expansion pull. I took it from this low that we put in on August 17th up to all-time high. I checked the volume from this expansion, and this point of control is coming in actually right on top of the point of control of this range. I have two point of controls aligning here, the one of this range and the expansion, so I like that confluence as well. And there is an anchored VWAP also creeping up on that box. Maybe by the time price gets down here, that anchored VWAP will be inside the box. But I also have just this whole range outlined because we could just retest the top of this. We could just retest the value area high. Kind of find it unlikely that we would just stop in the middle of this range high and the value area high because of how quickly we moved up through here, but it still could happen. I think this range in general is very important support. And something else that some people in my comments have been mentioning, some other confluence, which I might as well pull up. We got some golden pocket confluence and 786 confluence coming in these zones. The 786 isn't exactly in my box, so honestly, based on where it is, I don't love it as much, but that could be the reason that we kind of stop in the middle of that fair value gap. But the golden pocket is coming in inside this upper range, and it is giving very nice confluence to the point of control. So I like this little range right here, and I'm definitely watching what happens if we come down to SFP this low into that area. I'm very interested in that. And now to end things off, I'll just talk about why I think it's a good thing that we have not hit this all-time high yet, that we are retracing prior to taking that out. And I've already kind of talked about this in a couple videos, but reason number one is because there was very clear bearish div potential if we did take out the all-time high on any of these pushes to the upside, really. You can see, at any of those points, if we did take out all-time high, there would certainly be bearish divs on the daily time frame. Even these highs right here, you saw momentum lower than where it was at back here. For these later ones, you would have saw a money flow div as well. So I think the fact that we avoided putting in some high time frame bear divs after taking out all-time high is a good thing. And secondly, we know that price can't just go straight up. We know that these retracements that price has is pretty necessary for continued moves to the upside. And, looking at the last significant retracement that we had, which I would say was this one, you could say on a lower time frame, this was a retracement right here. But the higher time frame, more significant one, is certainly going to be this point. That was the last higher low on the high time frames. And at this point, I think it's a pretty healthy thing that we're seeing a retracement to potentially continue this uptrend. And the fact that we didn't take out all-time high means that we can retrace farther down without breaking structure. If we had touched the high at any of these points, the higher low would have been right here, and we would have already taken it out. The fact that the higher low is much farther down gives us a lot more breathing room here. We can retrace down to some of these significant areas, and there's still definitely potential that it ends up being a higher low. And that really means that, until we start losing this last higher low, like with significant closes, anything can really be a higher low. We can put in a higher low anywhere in this area. It does start to get more scary if we start losing this with like high time frame closes. That could mean that we have a lot of consolidation to do before we see another bullish push. Could even mean that we see a retracement or a dump much farther down. But I think we are pretty far away from having to consider anything like that. In the meantime, I am more focused on looking for a higher low. I'm looking for signs of a higher low. I'm not just going to try and guess that one has to come in here or one has to come in here. I'm going to watch price action. We'll see how it develops. And, if we see bullish signs in any of my refined areas, well, there's a chance that that ends up being a higher low. All right, well, that's about it for this video. Thank you, everybody, for watching. If you enjoyed, please consider leaving a like, subscribing, and leaving a comment. I appreciate the support on my channel, and I will see you all in the next one.